Awesome. Well, again, thank you so much for taking time for me. This is really, really cool because I feel like I've had so many different artists on, but none like you that's just like a fun, I'm like, this is just fun pop like music that I think so many can relate to and I want to feature. So I'm really excited to have you on.
Oh my God, thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and the first question I love to start my conversations are is bringing it back to a moment where you fell in love with music. Maybe not just an artist, but music itself. Where did you first fall in love with it?
Well, my first memory of falling in love with it is I used to watch Shirley Temple videos with my grandfather. I remember he would show me all of that. And so that is kind of what got me into everything. I was like in awe of her, and my hair is naturally really curly and it was short at the time, so I kind of like had that vibe slash little Orphan Annie vibe going on. And I just like asked my mom to put me in like singing lessons, tap dancing classes, and acting classes. And actually, for the first like while of my life, I wanted to be on Broadway, like musical theater, like just exactly like that. But it wasn't until high school when I started learning the guitar, and then I started writing songs. And after that, I was like, okay, this is what I want to do, which is actually good because I don't think I'm cut out for Broadway. Maybe one day in the future, but it's a lot of work. Not that this isn't a lot of work, but I can't dance at all, so
Yeah,
we'll start with
oh,
that.
me either. So I mean, or sing. I can't sing or dance, and I love music. So I'm like, all right, I'm glad I'm doing this side of that.
You're
So
like, okay, I'm a
yeah,
listener.
yeah, I'm a listener. I play my role. But yeah, I mean, even though, yeah, Broadway would be a lot of work, but I love that you touched on that because for anyone that doesn't know, like whether it's touring, completing a record, just social media in general and putting yourself out there, there's so much work into being an artist that the listener doesn't even consider or think about a lot. And it's like what you have to go through and putting yourself out there. It's like, it's such a vulnerable thing.
Yeah, it is kind of crazy. I remember when I first started writing songs, I was oh, no, before I ever wrote a song, sorry, I was the thought of writing a song and putting myself out there, letting strangers know my thoughts, scared the shit out of me. I was like, that is something I would never do. Never. I was like, that wouldn't happen, so I can't be an artist. But now here we are. So,
Yeah, isn't that, it's almost probably, I get a lot of people that say there's almost like that safety when they're a songwriter in those songs. Like they can say that stuff. There's something just like, there's that safety net where you're writing the song. Yes, other people are going to hear it and you're going to have to get on here and talk about it and everything like that. But I know in another interview you talked about every song kind of starts with you and your guitar and your bed. And I think that's such an intimate thing that like that's where that starts. So for you and those moments, and then these songs then become a record and they're all over. For you, do you ever think about those special moments you have with those songs before all of us get to hear it?
yeah, I mean, I think when I'm writing a song, I'm not even really thinking about everyone hearing it. And then
Mhm.
sometimes it's coming out and it's like the night before, and I'm like, oh, fuck. Like, my mom's gonna hear me say that one line, or like the person that it's about is maybe gonna be pissed. So I definitely should be thinking more when I'm writing songs, but because that's kind of gotten me in trouble before. But I normally am not thinking about that at all. But it is nice to go back and think about. Like sometimes I record everything like a voice note when I'm first coming up with my ideas, and sometimes I like to go back, like scroll all the way back to like early songs, and it's crazy because I don't really remember. It was like kind of like an outer body experience, and I'm just listening on the voice note, and I'm listening to myself like write it, and then like not have the line yet, and then I hear myself get the line, and I'm like, yeah, you go, girl, you did it, you got to that lyric, and so I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I love that because I had a guest on the other day and they had said too, like they almost had to, well, they couldn't get that one specific part they wanted. They wanted to get out there. But once they did, it was almost like, all right, we got over that hump. We got it. Like we're satisfied because I know even me, even doing this, sometimes I'm always like when I'm editing back, I'm like, oh, like, why didn't you do this? Why didn't you get there? Why didn't you get to that point? Like, what are you doing? And I think it's almost that moment where you're like, okay, I'm going to sit there and judge on that moment. But sometimes those moments that just happen where you can get to that point, it has to feel like just like finally, like I got it. Like I have achieved what I was trying to achieve without even knowing it. It just naturally happened.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. The creative process is so interesting. It's like so different for every single person. And yeah, it's cool to look back on yourself doing it.
Yeah, and it's like and these records too, and these albums that people put out, it's almost like a chapter of your life, right? Like it's a chapter where you're at and then like real time, and then you would go and tour, and then these songs are out and they're played, and it's we have to talk about this new record that is about to be out in April 17th, which is wild to think about. Like it's already February, it's here.
I
Um,
can't believe it's February.
but God forbid a girl spits out her feelings. First of all, the title is so good. I think anyone can relate to that. We've all been there. It's again being on the internet and just life. And one of those things. But is there anything you learned about yourself as a songwriter that was new to you while doing this release?
I mean, I definitely have with this album been trying to kind of like take a different approach sonically, I think. I mean, I think for me, what keeps my music consistent and sounding like a LOLO song is my lyrics behind it. And, obviously that vibe, that feeling, those feelings didn't change. But I feel like I kind of wanted to explore with this album, like, I don't want to say softer, but maybe like a cleaner sounding production and just kind of like going from just having a more natural element because I write all the songs in my room on guitar, or that's how they start anyway. And I'm like, I kind of want that to shine through a bit more on this album. And I've said this before, but like, kind of taking, like, still doing like, pop rock, indie pop, but instead of like doing like the heavier kind of pop rock, like the Green Day, Weezer, which I feel like those are things I was referencing before. Now, kind of going to the different side of pop rock, of the like Michelle Branch and Alanis Morissette and Ashley Simpson and those kind of people. That's kind of like the music I was listening to and referencing when writing this album. So I'm sure it will. You people will hear that.
Yeah, you can definitely hear. That's the one I right away was like, I feel like a lot of Michelle Branch. And I remember falling in love with Michelle Branch when I was younger. And like that still, I mean, still, I shouldn't even say younger because I'm still that person. And there's a lot of moments listening to this record that I was like, I can just picture in a venue with like the light on and you just playing that. And I think I love that that came across to me a lot too, because I'm like, nowadays there's a lot of heavy production in music, and that's okay if that's your thing. But for me, I've always gravitated towards those lyrics that are realistic and truth and just even if it's talking about a relationship, because I know, like you've said, people are like, is she really going to talk about this again? Or is she going to? But these are real life things that we all experience in a different way. And I think it's relatable, but it's just such an intimate thing because in the crowd, someone's going to have a different feeling when you are saying it, what you wrote about, and it's that connectivity. So I think there's going to be a lot of special moments once you get to play these songs live.
Thank you. I cannot wait. I'm so excited.
And even talking about that, I mean, you're going to be with this record, you're going on a UK, Europe tour to almost celebrate the release of this record, It's one of those things for you, what is going to be so special about celebrating it there on this tour?
Well, I mean, it's always such an amazing feeling and such a different feeling actually performing the songs live. Like, I feel like I kind of like learn new things about the songs, or like kind of find new appreciations for them, or there could be a song that like, wasn't my favorite on the album, but it's like my favorite to perform live. So like that's always really interesting and fun. But for me especially, because I recently have had a lot of like vocal troubles. I had a polyp on my vocal cord and I needed surgery. I just got back into like speaking again, and this month actually, now it's February, I'm allowed to sing again, and so I'm really excited about that. And like I feel like it's kind of my redemption because I was kind of put back like a few months, and I had to cancel a tour in November, which was the saddest thing ever and really hard on me, like in many ways. But so now this is kind of like not only touring and celebrating the album, but like touring and celebrating the fact that I can do that again. So it's just gonna be extra special.
Yeah, because like even that I was reading that about you as well, and I can only imagine. I had somebody on the other day, and they had said there was a moment where they lost their voice for a little bit, and it was just like can I ever sing again? Will I? And almost that feeling of like you lose something that just means it's such a huge part of you and who you are. And like whether it is your catharsis or your way to get it out, and it's like, how do you cope with that? And I I can't imagine not being able to do that. Like even me, like I'm overcoming a cold and like I was complaining the other day where I'm like, oh my God, I can't talk like I normally do. And I think it takes such strength to go through something like that as an artist and then come out on the other side of it.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like you really take little things for granted. And then I think just also as an artist or singer, or, anyone, podcaster, like
Yeah.
interviewer, anyone that uses their voice, like it is so scary that like our careers and like basically everything we do relies on our instrument, which is just part of us. And it's like you can't really control that. Like a guitar player, if he breaks his guitar, can buy a new one. Don't get me wrong. I'm
Right.
sure that's expensive.
Sure.
But it's just so scary when your instrument is like you and there's nothing you can do. And it's just like, I feel like the stakes are really high and it's stressful, because it's like everything about you is attributing to like, yeah, what your career could be. So it was a very, very scary moment, but I'm really happy that I'm on the other side of it.
Yeah, and it too, like one of those things, even talking about this record and playing songs live and the different relationships. For you, is there a song in general on this record that I'm sure you love them all, you're proud of them all, but is there a song you're like, that's the one I can't wait for people to hear and hear the feedback on?
Oof. That is such a good question because it's so hard to pick one. Honestly, right, I feel like my favorite on the album keeps changing. Right now, my favorite is probably the last track, Lobotomy and You. And I'm excited for people to hear it. I think it's really clever the way that it's written and like how it sounds like lobotomy and you,
Yep.
like me and you. I think that's really cool. And I think yeah, I just really like the song and I'm excited for people to hear it. And it's a ballad. I think I'm doing a lot more ballads this time around, I think. I have to go through, but I think I'm doing more ballads, which is interesting for me because most of the time my ballads do worse than like my upbeat tracks, but unfortunately it's the ones that I like better. So I'm kind of just trying to like pound it into people, being like, listen to my emotional songs. I want you to like this just as much as I like it. So we'll see how it goes. I mean, it could go terribly wrong, but I'm manifesting good things.
Yeah, let's manifest. I'm a big
Yeah,
manifester myself. So you
me
know
too.
what? Like let's do it because I think like a lot of people, I think it's attention spans because people want that faster or just in their face, but it's like I love the ballad. I gravitate towards that. I'm like, as I've gotten older, I'm that person that like I appreciate when it's slowed down a little bit and I can feel it. Especially like I'm a seasonal music listener and I like hearing these songs too. I'm like, this is like a spring record to me. So I'm happy that it's coming out in the spring. And I'm like, I think that a lot of people, I hope, again, check out the bat. Like Lobotomy and You was one of my top ones when I was like,
Me too.
this is gonna hit. Like for me, hopefully everyone else listening and watching, listen to them all. But that one, it's just so good. And it's not just because you're right here. That was the one I was listening. I was just like,
Oh, no way.
this is when I wrote down like on the side of like that I want to make sure we bring this up. So I'm glad it just got brought up.
Oh my God, I love that.
There
Amazing.
we, and two, like obviously with this being your sophomore record, I know there's always a expectation for your debut. Like this is who you are, and maybe some people knew about you before your debut, but now with the sophomore record, do you think there's more of an expectation because now whether it's social media, they know who you are, right? Or through your music.
Yeah, and honestly, that's why I'm a little scared about like I mean, I'm talking like I'm changing my entire genre, which I'm definitely not. But, like I know I have a lot of fans that love like punk rock, like heavier guitars, and it's definitely not there's some songs that are like that, but definitely not like the whole vibe of it. And even on my debut, like it wasn't like that the whole time. Like I had ballads and I had softer stuff, but I feel like anytime I take even a little bit departure, I get scared. I'm like, oh my God, I hope my fans like this. But then it ends up like that they do all like it, and I think that they just like me, thank God. And so they like anything I do. So I try to tell myself that, like that they're gonna support me in whatever I do, which I hope is true, and I think it is. And it's funny too because like I remember when I first put out my song "You Turn Me On, But You Give Me Depression," and at the time that was like a lot poppier than my other stuff because I was just coming from like Debbie Downer and Junkie and like way less poppy stuff, I guess. I mean it's all poppy, but those were less. And I remember thinking like, oh my God, I'm not gonna get on all of the like playlists I'm normally getting on, like the rock playlist and all this stuff. And I was really nervous that like people were gonna say it was too pop. And then I remember I got on like I was like the cover of the rock playlists, and everyone was like, "What an amazing like pop punk song." I don't think it's a pop punk song at all,
Right.
but I feel like anything I do because I'm wearing a plaid skirt and boots, people are like pop punk,
Hmm.
which is funny because I don't think I am, but I also am like fuck genres. I think that they're stupid. So
Hmm.
anyone can call my music whatever they want as long as they listen to it.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. I think, and specifically too, I think it's also women in music, no matter what. If they see somebody that looks, like the biggest thing is like Haley Williams, right? If they think you look like Haley Williams, you're immediately, okay, you're Paramore, you know, the next Paramore, or you want to be Paramore. And I'm like, I think we need to get away from that. That's why I'm like, I love that you're here and I can hopefully get more women guests. Like that's my main thing for 2026 is like I want to amplify those voices and show that like yes, maybe the image you see may but like dig into the music. The music is good. We shouldn't just be I'm a big genre. I don't like the whole genre thing. I'm like to me, I'm like I love when I can hear like a combination of genres or I look at someone and I think, "Oh, it's going to sound like this." No, it doesn't sound like that. And I'm really, really glad it doesn't. So for me, I think this record too will maybe show people too that there's different sides to you. And yes, maybe there's things about relationships, but dig deeper into it. It doesn't necessarily need to be a romantic relationship either. There could be
No, yeah,
friendship relationships that we're talking about here, which is important.
yeah, no, 100%. I completely agree.
And it's to me too, another thing is whenever records come out, I know some people say there's almost like a postpartum you go through so for you, how do you almost deal with that? Like obviously this record is not out yet, but once it is, and deal with those emotions, like you said too, like feeling nervous about like the release of it a little bit. How do you cope with that as an artist?
Honestly, it's really hard. Like, I'm such a control freak, and I think this is why it's always hard for me on release day because before release day, I can control all the lyrics, I can control what the production sounds like, what the art looks like, what the video is going to look like. I can control everything. But then once it's released and it's no longer mine and it's everybody's, I can't control what anyone says about it, what anyone thinks about it, how many streams it gets, what playlists it gets on, etc. And so I think something about that really just like triggers my nervous system. And I always find like that I get a little down or like feeling a little depressed when I release a song, which is so weird because you should be feeling happy that it's out there. But I think like it's also really hard as an artist with expectations and realities and stuff. And it's like everyone dreams that like this is the song that I'm gonna put out that's gonna be like number one in the world, my first number one Billboard, like that
Yeah.
kind of thing. And no matter what, you're always gonna be like, oh, wanting more for the song because it's like you put your sweat, blood, and tears and everything into writing it. And so I feel like you're always hoping for more. So I think that's also another reason why I sometimes get down. But then I have to remind myself that just like this is such an amazing, beautiful thing that I get to like have this release and everyone gets to hear it. And most importantly, it can now like help them through something. And it helped me when I wrote it, and now it can help other people. And so that is what I focus on. And then lately, I've been better about not getting like depressed on release days and trying to be happier in general.
Yeah, I think that's it's such a hard, it's easier said than done. And I think more
Yeah.
people maybe even hearing that, like it's tough. And I think to me, this record, the number one thing I got out of it was it's almost like a love letter to feel your feelings and don't be ashamed of them. Like don't be ashamed of feeling your feelings, whether you're telling a friend or you're telling the world or you're just sitting there on Instagram, like or the caption, whatever. I think though, for you, do you think that this record and being able to say what you're saying in these songs has helped you just in your everyday life, being able to say, you know what, I'm feeling these feelings. I want to be open because I think there's that safety in a song, right? You're in a song, you're writing like we were talking about. Has this record almost helped you in just day-to-day life be open?
100%. And funny enough, I actually think it was my last record and then touring that record that helped me because in the last record, Falling for Robots and Wishing I Was One, about wishing I was a robot and wishing that I could be numb and not feel things. And why do I feel everything so hard? And why do I have to be so oversensitive and over emotional? And while I was touring that, writing and touring that record, I kind of like in my show at the end wrap everything up and I say on the microphone to the audience like that this whole thing has helped me realize that like we are human and we do feel things and that's completely normal and that's what makes us human and that's so beautiful and at least we're all feeling these things together and I feel like I was really like living that lesson and like really just started implementing it in my life. And I think it's funny that now this album is about spitting out your feelings because I think that's a lesson that I learned on the last album and on the last tour.
Yeah, and I think too, like it's one of those lessons I think we can all learn. I know even hearing you say that and like listening to this record and feeling that myself, I always am like, why am I so sensitive? Why am I oversharing? Like, oh, please stop, like stop. But it's like sometimes like it's okay to be emotional and have those. And I think like you could tell this record was one of those things of it's a catharsis for us, the listener, but it's a catharsis for you as well. And I think that's really special and that can come across. So for me, this record already, I'm like, we're going to be in 2026. This is going to be a top just record already for me. For you, is there anything that you had? I mean, you've already talked about it a little bit, but the biggest obstacle you think you overcame making this record?
I mean, definitely my vocal issues because I had other songs that I wanted to record or I had other ideas that I wanted to write about that are in my phone app, my notes app, sorry, on my phone. But I think that if I didn't have those obstacles, I wouldn't have ended up naming the record God Forbid a Girl Spits Out Her Feelings, and it maybe would have been kind of a different thing. So weirdly enough, my biggest obstacle became my biggest reason, or not biggest reason, but my biggest obstacle became how my album came to be, if that makes any sense. So it ended up working out. I think everything happens for a reason. I've always really believed that. And so yeah, maybe that is part of the reason why my album is called this and about
Hmm.
this. And yeah.
I love that. It's like, yeah, again, taking back almost like that power of like the negativity of what an obstacle can be, but
Mhm.
coming out like it was meant to be. Again, back to our
Yeah.
manifestation stuff.
Yeah.
So like this has been so great, and I appreciate you taking the time for me and coming on here. I'm looking forward to seeing everything with this release and watching the tour. Is there anything else you can share for 2026 yet with this record? Maybe more if there's another tour or any shows, or can we not talk about that yet?
I mean, we definitely can't talk about it, but I can say that I'm definitely going to be doing more tours than
Awesome.
just the UK and Europe one. So, everyone in other territories, stay tuned because I did not forget about you. And I'll be hopefully announcing things soon-ish. And I mean, I also can say that I'm definitely going to have a deluxe because I already have all those other song
Yeah.
ideas that I want to include. So, you can be looking forward to the album, and then also the deluxe album is already in the works, so get excited.
Awesome. I love a deluxe album. I love to hear that because I know I was reading that about those other songs. So I was like, are we ever, what's going to come of that? So again, thank you so much. Like I'm so excited about
You.
this and to have you on here because again, I want to amplify more women in music. So this was really cool. And I love the record so much.
Thank you so much. That is so awesome, and I really appreciate that. So thank you, and thank you
Yeah.
for having me.
Yeah.